to today's live Zoo to You, coming right from Stone Zoo. Today's Zoo to You is brought to you by the U.Fund College Investing Plan and MEFA. And my name is Katie. I'm one of the educators here at Stone Zoo. And today we are going to be chatting all about reindeer and meeting one of our reindeer here at Stone Zoo, Aoife. If you have any questions during the course of our chat today, please feel free to ask them in the comments and we will do our best to answer them during our video. So today we are going to talk all about the amazing adaptations that reindeer have. And Aoife is really curious and getting nice and close, so hopefully everyone watching at home will get a chance to see her up close. So first, let's start kind of with the head and work our way through the parts of a reindeer to talk about some of these really cool adaptations they have. The first one, kind of the most obvious, I want to talk all about their antlers. Reindeer have really incredible antlers, and I actually have an example here to show everyone watching at home. This is a real antler, and this antler was actually shed by one of our male reindeer we had in the past named Cornelius. And this antler probably weighs between 10 and 15 pounds. Now, reindeer are the only species of deer where both males and females have antlers. It's a really cool adaptation, and they use their antler for all sorts of different things. So, if we take a look, I'll spin it around. This is the root, and that's where the antler grows right out of the reindeer's head. And if you look at Aoife, even though she's a little further away, you can see that reindeer have a part of the antler that sticks out and is really low to their face. What you're looking at there on Aoife and right here on Cornelius's antler, that's a reindeer snow shovel. So that part of the antler is used to scrape snow off of food. So reindeer are able to find their food all year round, even in really, really snowy conditions. Now, antlers are made of bone. A lot of people do think that they are horns made of keratin, but they are made of bone. And when they're growing, in the growing season, their antlers can grow up to 1 inch a day. So they do grow really fast. And in order to grow, you see on this antler, you can see it really well, these lines, that is where blood vessels and veins are connected to the bone while it's growing. And if you come to the zoo in the spring, you might see antlers on our reindeer that are brown and really fuzzy. That is called velvet, and that is the fur growing on them. It's live tissue, and their antlers are very sensitive when they're in velvet. And I do have an example. So this is what their antlers will look like when they're actively growing. When they're done growing, it's usually a couple months of growth. They're going to shed all this velvet off. So we actually have signs up around the zoo letting people know who are visiting what's going on with the reindeer, because their velvet gets really itchy. It's a little bloody. It doesn't hurt them at all, but they get an instinct to scratch off all of that velvet, and they're left with just the bone underneath. And they will usually lose their antlers if they're a female early in the winter, January, February, or March. But males usually lose theirs in the beginning of December. So actually all of Santa's reindeer are girls because they all have their antlers well into December. And that's really important for female reindeer. If they're in a big herd, maybe if they're pregnant or if they have a calf, they need to be able to defend themselves and their calf because they might be a little bit slower than the rest of the herd. So that's just a really cool defense mechanism that they have. Now, reindeer are native to the Arctic. In North America, they're found in Canada and Alaska. They're also found in northern parts of Europe as well. And since they are native to such chilly environments, they have some cool adaptations for staying warm. So one of them is actually right in their nose. Reindeer have really hairy, fuzzy noses. And that is so they can actually warm up the air before it hits their lungs. So it's just easier for them to breathe in that really crisp, cool air. They also have very long coats with 2 layers just to help them stay nice and warm in Arctic air. And their feet have some really cool adaptations too. So if you come to the zoo, you might actually hear a clicking noise, and that's because reindeer have a tendon that kind of slides around right over their hoof. So that's where that clicking noise comes from. And if you're able to get a close-up look at their feet, their hooves are very hairy as well. And that's to help them gain traction on icy and snowy ground. Aoife is very interested in what's going on next door. Her mother, Holly, lives right next door, so she's probably just seeing what Holly is up to right now. Have we had any questions come in through the chat yet?
Not yet, but I know you were talking a little bit about how they use their shovel on their antlers. What kind of food are they looking for?
That's a great question. So in their natural habitat, reindeer are going to be eating primarily grasses. And one thing that's very cool about their diet is that their diet changes seasonally. So those grasses are not available in the winter. If we think of what happens during the winter, a lot of herbivorous plants kind of go dormant, so there's not a lot of food available. So their stomach will actually shift. The enzymes that help them digest their food will change, so they can feed on a diet of primarily lichen. So they'll use that shovel to shovel snow off of fallen logs and rocks, and they will eat the lichen right off of that and survive through the winter on a lichen diet. Here at the zoo, Aoife's absolute favorite treat are oats. She loves oats just like we have for oatmeal, only they are dry. That is her favorite thing to snack on.
So Cynthia was actually wondering, is their fur hollow like a polar bear's?
That's a great question, Cynthia. I am not positive on the answer of that. I want to say the outer layer of guard hairs is likely hollow, but I'm not positive. We can answer that one in the chat afterwards.
Julie would like to know, how old are they when they get their antlers?
That's a great question, Julie. So Aoife here she's 3 years old, and she grew and shed her first set of antlers at 6 months old. So she was born in May, and the following January, February, she had around a foot, maybe a foot and a half of antler growth, and she shed those. And reindeer do shed their antlers every year. It's kind of like us losing a tooth. Their antler, the root of it gets kind of wiggly and it just pops right off, and they regrow their antlers each and every year. And every year they do come back a little bit bigger than the previous year. Typically females will have smaller antlers than the males.
Patricia's daughter, she actually has a question from her daughter. She would like to know how reindeer fly for Santa.
That's a great question. So our reindeer at the zoo do not work for Santa. They work here at the zoo, but I know that they are friends with Santa's reindeer. I'm not exactly sure how they fly. It might have to do with their diet. I think they eat magical oats, and that's how they get their ability to fly.
Linda would like to know if reindeer are affected by COVID.
Oh, that's a great question, Linda. Thank you for asking that. So this is going to surprise a lot of folks watching, but reindeer are susceptible to COVID-19. So if you have visited Stone Zoo recently, you can see that we have taken some extra precautions to keep both our guests and our reindeer here at the zoo nice and safe. So that includes extra barriers so we can maintain at least 6 feet of distance between us and them at all times. Reindeer have really special immune systems, and they are susceptible to a lot of illnesses, and COVID is one of them. So these extra precautions have just helped keep them nice and safe here at the zoo.
Susan was asking, how old is Aoife now, and how many reindeers does the zoo have?
That's a great question. So Aoife is 3 years old now, and we have 2 reindeer at the zoo. We have Aoife and then her mother, Holly, who is 8 years old, and she lives next door. And reindeer can typically live up until around 20 years old.
Sometimes I've heard the term caribou used. Can you tell us, is there a difference between a reindeer and a caribou?
That's a great question. So there is a lot of confusion about reindeer and caribou, and if they're 2 separate animals. Those are 2 different common names for the same species. So if you think of an animal like a mountain lion, they're also referred to as pumas or cougars. The same thing really happens with reindeer and caribou. Typically in North America, we refer to reindeer as a domesticated animal and caribou as their wild counterparts. And usually in Europe, they're only referred to as reindeer if they are domesticated or wild, but they are the exact same species. So there's no actual distinction.
Can you tell us, Susan was also asking if these are social animals or if they really prefer to live alone?
That's a great question. Reindeer can be found in really, really large herds. However, we find at the zoo that animals usually have very distinct personalities. So Holly, even though reindeer are typically herd animals, Holly does not enjoy being in a herd or really being around other reindeer. So that is why she is by herself. That is just something that she prefers.
And are reindeer endangered?
Another really awesome question. So reindeer are not endangered yet, but they are considered to be a vulnerable species, and that means that their population is declining. Unfortunately, we are seeing that with a lot of Arctic species right now. One part is due to climate change. As our Earth warms, their habitat is shrinking and warming, so that's driving them northward. But that also means that they have competition with other species they wouldn't have really encountered with, had any encounters with before. So that includes white-tailed deer. White-tailed deer are starting to encroach on reindeer habitat in some areas, and they can carry diseases that reindeer are susceptible to. We're also seeing activities in the Arctic like mining and drilling for oil that are having some negative impacts on reindeer. So if you want to help reindeer, it's really easy to do that from the comfort of your own home. Try to reduce your fuel consumption, take a walk or bike when you can, turn the lights off, help reduce your plastic use and consumption. That will help a lot of other animals, not just reindeer too.
And we have one last question from Karen, who is asking if all of Santa's reindeer are all females.
That's a great question, Karen. I haven't met them personally. However, based off of their antlers, I would make the assumption that they are all females just because they all have their antlers well into December, and we know that males usually lose theirs in the beginning of December.
And actually, one more question just came through. So what do you do with the discarded antlers here at the zoo?
Oh, that's another awesome question. So we have a lot of discarded antlers at the zoo since they are shed every year. Some of them we use for educational purposes, just like I'm doing right now, so I can teach with them and show people how cool antlers are. We also use them for animal enrichment here at the zoo. Antlers are full of vitamins and minerals that a lot of other animals require. So if you do come to the zoo, you might see antlers in some of our other animal exhibits. And that's there as a form of enrichment. They're really popular with rodents like our North American porcupines. So they almost always have an antler in there that they can nibble on. All right, everyone, we are just about out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Zoo to You. Our zoo is open year-round, so please stop on our website, get a pre-registered time slot, and come visit us soon. Happy holidays!